I stood in the doorway of Victoria's parents' pristine living room, my hand frozen on the doorknob, her whispered words still hanging in the air between us. Just tell them Oliver is yours. Please, Kevin. Just for tonight. I turned to face her fully, my voice low and absolutely clear. No. Her eyes widened. What? I said no, Victoria. I'm not lying to your parents about being Oliver's father. I kept my tone calm, but every word was deliberate. In fact, I think it's time everyone knew the truth about everything. The color drained from her face. Kevin, wait. I walked past her into the living room, where her parents, Robert and Diana, sat on the cream-colored sofa, smiling expectantly. Her father stood, extending his hand. I shook it firmly. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, I appreciate you inviting me to dinner, I began, but I need to clear something up immediately. Victoria asked me to pretend I'm Oliver's father. I'm not. We've only been dating for 3 months, and Oliver is 18 months old. The silence that fell over the room was suffocating. Diana's hand went to her throat. Robert's face hardened as he turned to his daughter. Victoria. Her mother's voice trembled. What is he talking about? Victoria's mouth opened and closed, her face flushed red. Mom, Dad, I can explain. The father is a man named Derek, I continued, pulling out my phone. I found these messages yesterday. I'd spent the previous evening unable to sleep, and something had nagged at me to check the laptop Victoria sometimes left open at my apartment. What I found had made my blood run cold. She's been in contact with him this entire time. She told him she was stringing me along until he was ready to commit. I held up the phone, showing screenshots of the messages. Robert took it from me, his jaw clenching as he scrolled. Victoria Ann Patterson, Diana whispered, standing up. Tell me this isn't true. It's not. It's not what it looks like. Victoria stumbled over her words, tears forming in her eyes. Derek and I, we have history, but he's not ready to be a father. And Kevin what? I asked, my voice still eerily calm despite the fury burning in my chest. Kevin has a stable job? Kevin was stupid enough to fall for you? Kevin could play daddy to another man's child while you kept your real relationship secret? That's not fair! Victoria's voice rose to a shrill pitch. What's not fair, I said, is that you introduced me to Oliver. Let me bond with him. Let me buy him toys and read him stories and think I was building something real with both of you. What's not fair is that you were using me as a placeholder. Robert handed my phone back to me, his face like stone. Is Derek the man from the country club? The one who refused to leave his wife? Victoria's sob told us everything. Oh my God, Diana sank back onto the sofa. Victoria, how could you? We raised you better than this. He said he loved me, Victoria cried. He said he was going to leave her, but then I got pregnant and he got scared and I didn't know what to do. So you found someone decent to manipulate instead, I finished for her. Someone who wouldn't question why you were so eager to get serious so fast. Someone who'd be so charmed by your son that he wouldn't notice the inconsistencies in your story. I'd noticed them, of course. The way she'd deflect when I asked about Oliver's father, how she'd change the subject whenever I suggested she file for child support. The expensive gifts that would appear at her apartment, gifts she claimed were from her aunt in California. The phone calls she'd take in another room, always coming back flustered. The designer handbag that appeared one week, the new laptop the next. She'd explained them away with stories about inheritance money and work bonuses, but the timeline never quite added up. I'd started keeping a mental log about 2 weeks before I found the messages. Small things at first. A mention of a restaurant I knew she couldn't afford on her salary. A weekend trip to wine country she'd taken with girlfriends that seemed oddly secretive. She'd return from these trips glowing, energized, but would grow distant with me shortly after. But the final piece had clicked into place yesterday when I'd seen the messages. Derek had texted, "When are you dumping the placeholder? I got the promotion. We can do this now." Her response, "Soon. Just need to make sure I have everything lined up. He's been useful, but you're Oliver's real father. Oliver needs his dad, not some random guy playing house." There were older messages too. Dozens of them. Plans for their future together. Discussions about how long she should keep Kevin around for financial stability. Jokes about my predictability, my eagerness to help with Oliver, my Boy Scout routine. Reading them had felt like swallowing glass. "Mr. and Mrs. Patterson," I said, addressing them directly. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I thought you deserved to know the truth before I was complicit in a lie. Your daughter has been lying to all of us." "Kevin, please." Victoria grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. "Don't do this. We can work through this. I made mistakes, but I love you." I gently but firmly removed her hand from my arm. "No, you don't. You love the idea of me, the stable, reliable guy who could give Oliver the life Derek wouldn't. But I'm not interested in being anyone's second choice or safety net." "Where are you going?" she asked as I walked toward the door. "Home. To pack up anything of yours that's at my place. You can pick it up tomorrow from my building's front desk." I paused at the door, looking back at her parents. I genuinely hope things work out for Oliver. He's a good kid. He deserves better than this mess. Robert stood, his expression grave. "Kevin, wait just a moment." He turned to Victoria. "How long has this been going on? With Derek?" "Dad, I don't think—" "How long, Victoria?" She crumpled into a chair, sobbing. "Since before Oliver was born, on and off. He kept saying he'd leave his wife, but he never did. Then he did, finally. But he said he wasn't ready for the responsibility. So I thought if I could show him what a family could look like, with someone else, he'd realize what he was missing." Diana's voice was ice. "You were using Kevin to make Derek jealous." "It wasn't like that. I mean, it started that way, but Kevin was so good with Oliver, and I thought maybe it could be real. But Derek kept texting, and he promised things would be different, and I just—" She looked up at me with desperate eyes. "I didn't know what I wanted." "You wanted to have your cake and eat it too," I said quietly. "You wanted Derek's excitement and my stability. You wanted to keep both of us on the hook until you decided which life you preferred. That's not—" "It is exactly that." I felt remarkably calm, as if I were discussing someone else's life entirely. "And you know what the worst part is? I would have been good to you. I would have been good to Oliver. But you never gave us a real chance because you were always looking over your shoulder at Derek." As I drove away, my hands shook on the steering wheel, not from doubt, but from the adrenaline of finally standing up for myself. My phone started buzzing with texts from Victoria, then calls. I declined each one. When I got home, I methodically gathered her things: the toothbrush in my bathroom, the spare clothes in my closet, the fancy coffee she preferred. I boxed it all up, including the expensive necklace I'd bought for her birthday next month. That one hurt. I'd saved for 2 months to afford it, a delicate sapphire pendant she'd admired in a jewelry store window. But I wasn't about to let sentimentality cloud my judgment. My phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Kevin?" It was Diana. "I'm so sorry. We had no idea." "Mrs. Patterson, you don't need to apologize for your daughter's choices." "I know, but—" She paused, and I heard muffled voices in the background. "Robert is furious. He's cut her off financially. We told her she needs to come clean to Derek, make him step up, or file for child support. No more hiding. No more games. That's between you and Victoria. I know, thank you for telling us the truth. It took courage. Most men would have just walked away quietly, let us keep thinking whatever we wanted to think. Most men might have, I said. But I couldn't let you be deceived too. You welcomed me into your home. You treated me like family. You deserved better than being lied to. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment. The anger was still there, but beneath it was something else. Relief. Relief that I'd found out after 3 months instead of 3 years. Relief that I'd trusted my instincts when something felt off. Relief that I'd had the backbone to walk away the moment I knew. I'd loved Victoria, or thought I had. I'd imagined a future with her and Oliver. I'd pictured teaching Oliver to ride a bike, helping with homework, being there for school plays and birthday parties. I'd even started looking at 3-bedroom apartments, thinking we might need the space if things progressed. But that future had been built on lies, and I refused to be the kind of man who accepted being deceived just to avoid being alone. The next morning, I texted Victoria a single message. Your things are with the front desk. Please don't contact me again. She tried anyway. Over the next few days, the messages poured in. Apologies, explanations, promises to change. Some were tearful, others angry. One blamed me for abandoning her in her darkest hour. Another accused me of never really loving Oliver. I blocked her number after that one. She emailed. I sent those to spam. She showed up at my apartment building 2 days later. I watched from my window as the doorman turned her away, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt a twinge of something. Not regret, but sadness. Sadness that she'd thrown away something real for something that had always been an illusion. 2 weeks later, my friend Jason met me for drinks at our usual bar downtown. Dude, you've been all over Victoria's social media. I blocked her on everything. Yeah, but she's been posting about you, playing the victim, saying you abandoned her and Oliver when they needed you most, that you couldn't handle the reality of dating a single mom. Jason made air quotes with his fingers. She's got a lot of people sympathizing with her. I felt a flash of anger, but it passed quickly. Let her. Anyone who knows me knows that's not true. And anyone who doesn't know me, their opinion doesn't matter. Still, man, that's brutal. She's making you look like the bad guy. Jason, she lied to me for 3 months. She used me to make another man jealous. She was planning to dump me the second her first choice became available. I took a sip of my beer. I don't feel guilty for telling the truth. And I'm not going to defend myself on social media like we're in high school. Jason raised his glass. To having a spine. I clinked my glass against his. To not settling for being someone's backup plan. So what now? You dating anyone? No. I need time to process this, to figure out why I didn't see the signs earlier. What signs? The inconsistencies, the deflections, the times her story didn't quite add up. I swirled my beer, watching the foam settle. I noticed them, but I talked myself out of trusting my gut. I told myself I was being paranoid or jealous or overly suspicious. I won't make that mistake again. A month after the dinner, I ran into Robert at the gym we both apparently frequented. I'd seen him from across the weight room and considered leaving, but he spotted me and walked over. Kevin, I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk to me. You're not Victoria, Mr. Patterson. You don't need to avoid me. He nodded, looking relieved. I wanted you to know. We've been trying to get Derek to step up. He's been resistant, but we've made it clear to Victoria that we won't enable her deception anymore. We hired a lawyer to help her file for child support. How's Oliver? He's with us most of the time now, actually. Victoria's been struggling. Robert's face showed genuine pain. Derek finally admitted he has no intention of being involved. His wife found out about the affair and is divorcing him, but he's made it clear he's not interested in being a father. He said, and I quote, "I didn't ask for this kid, and I'm not going to pretend I want him." I felt sick. That's terrible. Oliver's innocent in all this. We know. Diana and I are doing our best. But Victoria's realizing she's truly on her own with this. Derek won't return her calls. He changed his number. She's finally understanding that the fantasy she'd built up about him was never real. That's hard, I said, meaning it. Whatever Victoria had done to me, Oliver was innocent, and she was still a human being facing a harsh reality. She asks about you sometimes. Oliver, I mean. He noticed you're not around anymore. He keeps asking where Kevin went. Robert's eyes were damp. He's too young to understand, of course, but he bonded with you. That hit harder than I expected. I remembered Oliver's squeals of delight when I'd walk through the door, the way he'd toddle over with a book for me to read, how he'd fallen asleep on my chest one Sunday afternoon while we watched a baseball game. I'm sorry. I got attached to him too, but I couldn't stay in that situation. It wouldn't have been healthy for any of us, Oliver included. We understand. You did the right thing. I just thought you should know. Victoria's facing real consequences. She lost her job. She put so much energy into juggling you and Derek that her performance suffered, and they let her go during the last round of cuts. She's moved back in with us. She's applying for jobs, but the market's tough, and she doesn't have the best references from her last position. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. She made her choices. Robert's voice was firm. Diana and I raised her to be honest, to treat people with respect. She chose differently. Now she's learning that actions have consequences. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I just felt tired. I hope she figures it out. For Oliver's sake. So do we. Robert extended his hand. Thank you again. For being honest when it would have been easier to just walk away quietly, for respecting us enough to tell us the truth. After he left, I finished my workout with a clear head. Victoria's downfall wasn't my responsibility, but knowing the truth was out there, that her parents understood what had happened. It brought a sense of closure. 3 months after that dinner, I was thriving. I'd gotten a promotion at work, the senior analyst position I'd been working toward for 18 months. My manager had told me that my focus and dedication over the past few months had been remarkable. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, she'd said. What I was doing was simple. I'd stopped spending emotional energy on someone else's drama and redirected it toward my own growth. I'd started training for a marathon, something I'd always wanted to do. I'd reconnected with hobbies I'd let slide while trying to be there for Victoria and Oliver, my guitar, my photography, the rock-climbing gym I'd abandoned because Victoria found it boring. My apartment felt like mine again. No compromises, no walking on eggshells, no hidden agendas lurking beneath seemingly innocent conversations. I was at a coffee shop one Saturday morning, working on some freelance consulting I'd picked up on the side when I saw her. Victoria, looking exhausted, with Oliver in a stroller. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair, once meticulously styled, was pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, a far cry from the put-together woman I'd dated. She spotted me before I could leave. "Kevin, please, can we talk?" Her voice was small, desperate, lacking the confident lilt I remembered. I stayed where I was, keeping the table between us. "There's nothing to talk about, Victoria. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But everything's falling apart, and I just need— What? Someone to fix it for you?" I kept my voice level, aware that other customers were trying not to stare. I'm not that person. I was never supposed to be that person. I was supposed to be your partner, not your solution. I know that now. I've been in therapy, and I'm working on myself, and I realize how badly I treated you, how I took advantage of your kindness. Tears streamed down her face. Derek won't even acknowledge Oliver exists. He sends the court-mandated child support, but that's it. No calls, no visits, nothing. I thought he loved me. I thought once his divorce was final, we'd be together. But he never wanted us. He never wanted me. Not really. I'm sorry you're going through that, but it doesn't change anything between us. There is no us. There never really was. But there could be. I've changed. I understand now what I had with you. How rare it is to find someone who actually cares, who shows up, who wants to be present. Her voice cracked. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. No, I said firmly. You threw away a good thing. But the best thing that ever happened to you should be your son. Focus on him. Get the child support you're owed. Build a real life, not one based on manipulation and lies. I'm trying, but it's so hard. My parents help, but they're still so disappointed in me. They look at me like they don't know who I am. I lost my job. I lost you. I lost any chance with Derek. I lost everything. You lost those things because of choices you made, Victoria. Not because of bad luck or misunderstanding. You chose to lie. You chose to keep Derek in the picture while dating me. You chose to use me. You chose to gamble with my feelings because you thought I'd be too nice or too invested to walk away. Those were active decisions. Oliver started fussing in his stroller, reaching up toward his mother. I felt the old instinct to help, to lift him out, to comfort him. But I stayed where I was. That wasn't my role. It never had been, despite what I'd briefly believed. I have to go, I said, packing up my laptop. I wish you well, honestly, but I can't be part of your life. We're done, Victoria. We've been done since the moment you asked me to lie for you. As I walked away, she called out, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Kevin. You were right about everything. I didn't look back. In my periphery, I saw her sink onto a bench, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt sympathy for her situation, but it was distant, detached. She'd made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. 6 months later, I met Rachel at a work conference in San Diego. She was a financial analyst from a competing firm, funny and brilliant, with a sharp wit and an infectious laugh. We bonded over terrible conference coffee and a mutual hatred of networking events. By the third day, we'd exchanged numbers. Our first date was a hike along the coast. She talked about her work, her passion for environmental conservation, her close relationship with her family. When I mentioned I'd recently gotten out of a relationship, she didn't pry, just nodded sympathetically. On our third date, over dinner at a small Italian restaurant, she asked about it directly. So your ex, do I need to know anything? Still hung up on her? Messy breakup? I appreciated her directness. No, not hung up on her. And yes, it was messy, but in a clarifying way. I told her about Victoria, not in bitter, angry terms, but factually. The lies, the manipulation, the choice I'd made to walk away. Rachel listened thoughtfully, her expression serious. That must have been hard. Walking away from the kid, too. It was the hardest part, I admitted. But I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies just because I cared about her son. That wouldn't have been healthy for any of us. Kids can sense when adults are unhappy, or when a relationship is forced. You did the right thing. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Too many people stay in situations that hurt them because they're afraid of being alone or being seen as the bad guy. Thanks for understanding. Thanks for being someone who knows their worth. That's rare. She smiled. And selfishly, I'm glad you do. because it means you're available. As our relationship deepened over the following months, I realized what I'd missed with Victoria: genuine partnership. Rachel and I made decisions together. We communicated openly. When problems arose, we addressed them head-on instead of hiding or deflecting. There were no secret phone calls, no mysterious gifts, no vague stories that didn't quite add up. She met my family at Thanksgiving. My mother pulled me aside in the kitchen while Rachel was laughing at one of my father's terrible jokes in the living room. "She's wonderful, Kevin. So different from Victoria. You can say her name, Mom." "From Victoria," she agreed. "This one is genuine. I can tell. She looks at you like you're the only person in the room." Victoria did too at first. "No, honey. Victoria looked at you like you were useful. There's a difference." She was right. Rachel valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide or what role I could fill in her life plan. We were building something together, not using each other. A year. After that fateful dinner at the Pattersons, I was having lunch with my sister Emma at a cafe near her office when she brought up Victoria. "Did you hear? She's engaged." I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, not even curiosity. Good for her. To Derek, apparently. He's back with her now that his divorce is final. But from what I heard through the grapevine, you know Melissa works with Victoria's cousin. He's still not really involved with Oliver. Victoria's parents basically raise him full-time. Derek works late most nights, and when he is home, he's in his office or out with friends. That's sad. Oliver deserves better. The cousin says Victoria seems miserable. She got what she thought she wanted. Derek committed, ring on her finger, but he's not the partner she imagined. He's resentful about the child support he had to pay while they were apart, bitter about his divorce, and treats Oliver like an inconvenience. Emma shook her head. Apparently they fight. Constantly. I hope she finds a way to make it work. For Oliver's sake. You're more charitable than I'd be. She used you. She did. But being bitter about it doesn't help me. Moving on does. I smiled. You know what's not sad? That I got out when I did. I dodged a bullet, and now I'm with someone who actually appreciates me. Emma grinned. Rachel's great. I really like her. Mom won't stop talking about her. Yeah, she's special. With her, everything just feels easy. Not boring easy, but healthy easy. We don't play games, we don't keep secrets. We're just honest with each other. That's what you deserve. What you always deserved. I know that now. I didn't always know it, though. I thought being understanding meant accepting whatever someone dished out. I thought being patient meant waiting for someone to decide I was worth choosing. I looked out the window at the busy street. Victoria taught me that patience without boundaries is just people-pleasing, and people-pleasing isn't love. The final closure came 18 months after the breakup. Diana Patterson reached out via email. Dear Kevin, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to reach out because I felt you deserved to know how things have turned out, and to thank you once more for your honesty that difficult evening. Victoria is now married to Derek. Unfortunately, my fears have been realized. He's not the father or partner she hoped he would be. He works long hours, spends his free time with friends, and shows little interest in Oliver. When he is around, he's often critical or dismissive. Victoria has expressed deep regret about losing you, particularly now that she sees what a real, committed partner looks like, or rather, what it doesn't look like. Derek has made it clear that he only proposed because Victoria gave him an ultimatum: marry her, or she'd pursue full custody and maximum child support. He resents the situation, and it shows. They're in marriage, counseling, but Derek rarely attends sessions. Robert and I are Oliver's primary caregivers at this point. We don't mind. We love our grandson dearly, but we're heartbroken that Victoria's choices have led her to this place. She confided in me recently that walking away from you was the biggest mistake of her life. She said you were the only man who ever genuinely cared about Oliver, who wanted to be present and involved, who made her feel valued beyond what you could provide. She asked me not to contact you, but I felt you should know. Not to gloat. I know you're not that kind of person. But because I think you should understand that your decision to walk away with your integrity intact was absolutely the right one. You deserve someone who values you from the start, not someone who realizes your worth only after losing you. I hope life is treating you well. Robert and I often think of you fondly and wish you every happiness. Warmly, Diana Patterson. I read the email twice, then forwarded it to Rachel with a simple message. Proof that following your gut is always the right move. She replied immediately. Proof that I'm the luckiest woman alive because you have standards and the strength to enforce them. Love you. Can't wait to see you tonight. I smiled, closed my laptop, and went to meet her for dinner. We had plans to look at apartments together, a real step forward, built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. No secrets, no ulterior motives, just two people who'd chosen each other genuinely and completely. As I drove through the city, I thought about that night at the Pattersons. The moment Victoria had whispered her request, asking me to lie, to pretend, to be complicit in her deception. The moment I'd said no, the moment everything had changed. Some people might say I should have been more understanding, more flexible, more willing to work through issues. But there's a difference between working through problems and accepting disrespect. There's a difference between compromise and being used. There's a difference between patience and being someone's placeholder until their first choice becomes available. I'd made the right choice that night. I'd made the right choice every day since. And now, driving toward a future with someone who valued honesty as much as I did, I felt nothing but gratitude for the strength I'd found to walk away. Gratitude for the instinct that had told me to check that laptop. Gratitude for the backbone to tell the truth, even when it would have been easier to go along with the lie. Victoria had asked me to pretend her child was mine. Instead, I'd told the truth and left her in shock. She'd lost everything she'd taken for granted: financial support from her parents, a good job, a partner who genuinely cared, and most tragically, the illusion that Derek would ever be the man she wanted him to be. Meanwhile, I'd gained everything that mattered: self-respect, a loving relationship, built on truth, the peace of mind that comes from knowing you didn't compromise your integrity, and the unshakable confidence that I'd never settle for less than I deserved again. 2 years after that dinner, Rachel and I got engaged. The proposal was simple, honest, and perfect, just like our relationship. We were hiking the same trail where we'd had our first date. At the summit, with the ocean stretched out below us and the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks, I got down on one knee. Rachel, you're the most honest, genuine person I've ever known. You see me clearly and love me anyway. You challenge me to be better while accepting me as I am. I want to build a life with you, a real life, based on truth and partnership and choosing each other every single day. Will you marry me? She said yes through happy tears, and as I slid the ring onto her finger, I thought briefly about the alternate universe where I'd said yes to Victoria's request, where I'd lied to her parents and stayed in that toxic situation. In that universe, I'd be miserable. Probably still discovering new lies, still playing second fiddle to Derek, still wondering when the other shoe would drop, still sacrificing my self-respect for the illusion of stability. But in this universe, the real one, I was happy. Genuinely, completely happy. "What are you thinking about?" Rachel asked, admiring her ring in the fading sunlight. "How glad I am that I never settled for less than I deserved." She kissed me, soft and certain. "And how glad I am that you didn't, because it means I get you, all of you. No competition, no doubt, no games." At our wedding, a year later, my best man gave a speech that referenced Kevin's legendary ability to see through BS and act accordingly. Everyone laughed, but I caught Emma's eye across the room. She raised her glass to me with a knowing smile. She understood. That night at the Pattersons had been a turning point, not just in my relationship with Victoria, but in my understanding of my own worth. I'd learned that walking away with your dignity intact is always better than staying and losing yourself. I'd learned that the pain of ending something false is temporary, while the pain of maintaining something false can last a lifetime. I never saw Victoria again after that encounter at the coffee shop. Through the grapevine, I heard occasional updates. Her marriage to Derek was rocky. They'd separated twice already. She'd become a shadow of her former self. She often told people her biggest regret was losing me. I heard she'd started therapy, that she was working on herself, that she was trying to be a better mother to Oliver, despite Derek's lack of involvement. I felt sympathy for her, but it was distant, detached. She'd made her choices. She'd faced the consequences. And somewhere in the midst of losing everything she'd taken for granted, hopefully she'd learned something about honesty, respect, and the danger of treating people as means to an end rather than as ends in themselves. As for me, I'd learned that the moment you realize someone is using you, the only healthy response is to walk away. Not to try to fix them, not to hope they'll change, not to sacrifice your self-respect for the sake of not rocking the boat, and certainly not to become complicit in their lies. The moment Victoria had asked me to lie, I'd seen clearly what she thought of me. A convenient placeholder, someone whose integrity mattered less than her comfort, someone she could manipulate because I was too nice to say no. And the moment I'd said no, I'd sent a clear message back. I'm worth more than that. I deserve better than that. And I'm not afraid to walk away to prove it. That decision, that single moment of standing up for myself, had changed the trajectory of my entire life. It had led me to Rachel, to career advancement that came from focusing on myself instead of trying to manage someone else's drama, to a sense of peace and self-assurance I'd never known in my relationship with Victoria, and to the unshakable knowledge that I would never again compromise my values for anyone. Standing at the altar with Rachel, I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for my instincts, for my backbone, for the strength to choose self-respect over false comfort, for the wisdom to recognize the difference between working through normal relationship challenges and accepting fundamental disrespect. Victoria had gambled that I'd be too kind, too invested, or too weak to call her out. She'd lost that bet, and in losing it, she'd lost everything else too. Not just me, but her parents' respect, her financial stability, her job, and ultimately even the fantasy relationship with Derek she'd sacrificed everything to pursue. I'd won something far more valuable than any relationship built on lies could ever provide. A life built on truth, a partnership based on mutual respect, a career that flourished when I stopped, being distracted by drama, and the unshakable knowledge that I'd never compromise my integrity for anyone, That was worth more than any relationship built on lies could ever be. As Rachel and I exchanged vows, promising honesty and partnership and genuine love, I felt the final door close on that chapter of my life. Victoria was my past, a painful lesson learned and never forgotten. A reminder that red flags are red for a reason, that instincts exist to protect us, and that the courage to walk away is sometimes the greatest act of self-love we can perform. Rachel was my future, bright, honest, and built on the foundation of two people who valued themselves and each other equally. Two people who chose truth over convenience, respect over comfort, and genuine partnership over the illusion of stability. And that made all the difference.